Welcome back. Another day in the House of Commons here. We've got a clip between Pierre Poilievre ripping Justin Trudeau. Guess what? Yeah, Justin Trudeau's actually back at work in the House of Commons. Let's get into this.
Mr. Speaker, the question was about the Prime Minister's billion-dollar green slush fund scandal. We already know as well he forces 2 million Canadians to a food bank and doubled housing costs, is quadrupling the carbon tax. He has a billion-dollar fund whose own bureaucrats say reminds them of the sponsorship scandal, whose executives give money to their own companies. Yesterday, a courageous whistleblower testified the Prime Minister's Innovation Minister lied, and I quote, lied to the committee. Why is this minister and his boss, the Prime Minister, covering up this scandal and waste of Canadian tax dollars?
So just to clarify, there is 2 Liberals that have been named, that there's $150 million that is missing of Canadian taxpayer dollars, and one woman, one Liberal, she tried to funnel $2.2 million into her own personal business. I don't know if it was a charity or something, but it's basically she's just trying to just tuck it away in there, and then later she can give herself a nice $1 million bonus, or, you know, I don't know what their plans are. I mean, you could just slowly whittle that away, pay yourself an extra salary for doing nothing for the next 10 years, you know, $200,000 or $300,000 a year until that 2 million gets into your own account. These Liberals are so corrupt, and we don't have RCMP stepping in there to do anything. We're basically at the mercy of they just steal our money and nothing happens. That's the problem. There's no punishment for doing these heinous crimes. If we had a law where they had to spend 1 year in jail for every $1,000 or even $10,000 that they stole, there'd be a lot of Liberals in jail.
Not surprising that the Conservative leader doesn't want to talk about his failed Republican-style plan to shut down Parliament last week.
So they've been, if you notice the lingo they're using now, the Liberals, they're really trying to get they're trying to paint Pierre Poilievre and the Conservatives as MAGA Trump kind of party to scare all the Canadians who don't like Trump, thinking they're voting for Trump. That's their last ditch effort here. It's not going to work. Canada's in crumbles. Just take a hike, Trudeau.
All his 30-hour temper tantrum achieved was to show.
So everyone, if you're not familiar, if you look on YouTube, you look on TikTok or YouTube, or, Instagram or YouTube Shorts, there's so many videos just painting Trudeau with that brush that he throws temper tantrums. And you'll notice he's now trying to flip all of the lingo onto Pierre Poilievre. The problem is Pierre Poilievre is a very common sense, rational thinker. He's not throwing temper tantrums. He's not, the drama teacher, like, does that like stern pointing thing and tries to pretend that he has a lot of emotion and cares when he doesn't. We all know you're a narcissist, JT.
Canadians, the party's true colors, and cost Canadians $2 million in wasteful spending. The Conservative Party tried to cut affordable childcare, cut construction of affordable housing, and defund the police and Canada's armed forces.
So Trudeau cut the support for veterans, and now he's trying to flip it around. It can get confusing if you don't follow the politics. So basically, the Conservatives put in 130 motions that needed to be voted on, and they don't, they take time to vote on. It took 30 hours. And so they did this just to really stick it to the Liberals, to force them to take off the carbon tax. They didn't, and they stayed there for 30 hours voting on this crap. And so the Conservatives, no matter what the Liberals tried to come back with, they just said no to everything. So now that's what they're bringing up. They said no to this and no to that. But the point is they put in 100 motions to create this just absolute chaos where they all had to stay there all night to vote, to get them to take the carbon tax off so people can afford to feed themselves. But the Liberals don't care about Canadians being able to feed themselves and have heat in their houses. The Liberals do not care about Canadians. They care about giving the money to Ukraine. They care about that new $5.3 billion that Justin Trudeau just gave to the Philippines for some ecological green whatever. Like it's more climate change, gender climate change. Like, you can't make this stuff up. We've got like a prime minister doing the stupidest stuff. I can only laugh because if I don't laugh, I get so angry. Unbelievable.
They want to bring us back to the Stone Age. We'll stay focused on Canadians.
We'll stay focused on Canadians. That doesn't care about Canadians.
Canadians are forced to eat stone soup this winter after this Prime Minister gave us the worst food price inflation in 40 years, and we have 2 million Canadians, a record-smashing number, lined up at food banks. I know the Prime Minister is desperate to avoid defending his own track record, or worse yet, his quadrupling of the carbon tax. There is a common-sense Conservative bill, C-234, in the Senate, up for the vote today. Will the Prime Minister stop blocking the bill, axe the tax so that our farmers can feed families?
No, they will not, because they don't care about Canadians. Liberals do not care.
Mr. Speaker, the Conservative Party of Canada had the opportunity to support affordability measures for Canadians, but instead they chose to take 30 hours attacking
See, it's more of
the most
that. He's just
vulnerable.
bringing up all the
During
points
the
in that
Conservative leaders'
big mega
$2 million
voting
temper
marathon.
tantrum, they gladly
There's a
stood
temper tantrum. He's
against
trying to flip the
veterans
language.
experiencing homelessness, against emergency shelters for women and girls, against Indigenous housing.
It's like, to bring up that stuff, dude. Like, really? Seriously, there's people living in tents. If you go on TikTok, people are comparing, like, they're like, post pictures, post videos of the tent cities in your city. People are comparing tent cities in Canada. This is disgraceful.
Against rapid affordable housing construction. They even tried to prevent support for those who lost their homes in Hurricane Fiona. That leader...
Look at the smug smile down here. See this? This is Karina Gould. I don't like her. She's a snake in the grass. She's a slithering snake. And look, she's right next to Trudeau. She's just weaseled her way right up to the top. Guess what, lady? You'll never be prime minister. You're gonna be losing your job after this. She's a nasty snake. If you watch any of her videos, she will sit there with a smile and then just the nastiest, most false, rude things you could ever say. She is a nasty woman.
Is reckless and should be ashamed. The Honourable...
Say there, here. Like, this person's gonna be a mother. I feel sorry for that kid. There's too much to say here. These people are all corrupt.
Leader of the opposition.
The truth is that the Prime Minister is not spending money on any of those things. He has a food program that doesn't feed kids, it feeds bureaucracies and creates frameworks that kids can't eat. He has a housing affordability program that doubles the cost of housing, a housing accelerator that hasn't built a single house, a carbon tax that hasn't reduced emissions. So instead of spending billions on programs that cause inflation and do nothing but sound pretty, why won't he axe the tax on our farmers so that they can feed Canadians this winter?
I love how Pierre just dishes it straight, and it's just straight to the fact and honest. He's not twisting any words. It really is. It's like you got that Sean Fraser guy, the Minister of Housing. He steps up. He's been taught by Trudeau. Has the whole dramatic, like, drama teacher thing going on. And it's just like, dude, like, I don't care about your drama performance. Like, you've built no houses and you have no plan. You were talking about housing for a second. The numbers are in. There's 200,000 houses per year that are built in Canada, yet they're bringing in 500,000 immigrants. If this housing minister was actually serious about his job, then he would have a serious talk with Justin and say, hey, we can't actually bring in that many people because it's going to increase the price of housing and cause suffering to Canadians. But those guys are all criminals making $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 a year, and they don't care about Canadians.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Whether the leader of the opposition makes a homemade video about it or not.
Let's talk about that for a second, JT. That video, he's talking about Pierre Poilievre's documentary on the housing crisis. That video, if I were a betting man, I've made over 1,000 videos on YouTube, so I know editing when I see it. That video looks like it's produced by Johnny Harris's team. Now, if it wasn't, it's someone who's learned and studied Johnny Harris's stuff very closely, uses the same music, it uses the same sort of animations, the same sort of cutting, the pacing, the wording, the way it's cut, the way it's put together. If I were a betting man, I think Pierre Poilievre hired Johnny Harris's team to produce that video because he wanted the best. There's also another one that Andrew Scheer had on his channel, and it's the same sort of production quality. Come on, man. Talking homemade video, it's like top of the top. You're basically just insulting every other Canadian who doesn't have a team of 20 plus professionals producing content like myself.
A key factor contributing to food inflation around the world is Putin's illegal war in Ukraine. That party has been...
You hear that little rat back there, Mr. Speaker, so true. Chrystia Freeland, come on, man.
right into the Kremlin's hands by voting against Operation Unifier, by voting against funding for military aid to Ukraine.
Look at this. He's like, he does that the big breath with the dramatic, but he's sitting there reading his thing. How many times do you see Pierre Poilievre reading from notes? He doesn't need it because he lives and breathes it. He wants to actually help Canadians. I truly believe that. Like Trudeau here with his big like, come on, man.
And by voting at every opportunity, including again this morning, against the Canada-U-Trade free trade agreement that Ukrainians have been asking for. We will never abandon Ukraine, unlike the Conservative leader who's shown Canadians.
He gets caught off there. It's like, great job, Justin. You're a great Prime Minister of Ukraine. Why don't you, I think him and Freeland should have their citizenships taken away and sent off to Ukraine. They've proven they don't care about Canadians. They have no interest in Canadians. Heck, $5.3 billion to Philippines. We got people living in tents. Really? The town I live in a small town in Vancouver Island, and they spent $5 million to buy up a whole bunch of waterfront property so they could build a nice waterfront community. And this is the biggest thing ever that's happened around here. It's a small town of 20,000 people. Just think, if you took $5.3 billion in this general area, and I live kind of on the way out towards Tofino, where there's already 2 million people per year driving through. If they built with $5.3 billion, they could turn this into some world-class kind of downhill mountain biking community. They could build big resorts and have gondolas up to the top of these mountains, and there could be, it produce all sorts of jobs. Like for myself, I could do hiking. I could do guided hiking tours for people. If there's all these, like, it would provide so many opportunities and develop this entire area. Heck, $1 billion would do that. So let alone the $5 million, that's the biggest, investment in this area in like decades. Yet $5.3 billion to Philippines? This government is... We need a policing unit that is higher than the government. We don't have that, unfortunately. Seems the RCMP is paid off.
The Honourable Leader of the Opposition.
The Prime Minister is desperate to distract from the misery that he caused here at home. I wonder if he could just for once think about Canadians instead of thinking about himself. We have 2 million Canadians lined up in food banks, a record-smashing number. He's doubled the cost of housing. He wants to quadruple the carbon tax. 9 in 10 young people say they'll never be able to afford a home. We understand with this miserable record, he doesn't want to talk about Canada or Canadians. He'd rather spread falsehood about faraway foreign lands, Mr. Speaker. Will he not stand up for once for Canada, axe the tax so our families can eat?
There it is. Like, how many times you actually hear about Trudeau talking about Canadians? He doesn't. It's always Ukraine. Or now it's Philippines. I was looking at a list the other day. There's a laundry list it's like probably 2 or 3 dozen countries that Trudeau is giving all these millions and millions and millions, 300 million there, 10 million there, 40 million there, 200 million there, to all these different countries in this and that, money for climate change, all this stuff. Where's the money for Canadians? This is our money. He's giving away our money. Where's the RCMP? This is a disgrace.
The Right Honourable Prime Minister.
Speaker, the Conservative leaders' partisan vitriol and performance games are hurting Canadians. Let's talk about their record direct.
Coming from the drama teacher, performance. Oh, get out of here, man.
When it came to 988, the suicide crisis helpline, how did they just vote again?
This is what Karina Gould, she's probably digging around. I think that 988 thing goes back to 2020 or 2019 is years ago. And I don't know the whole story and history about that because I wasn't involved in the politics. And I'll probably dig into that and do another video on it. But that's what these guys do. There's always some catch. It's like, we want you to vote for this, plus you have to give us something else that we really need that hinders the other party. And obviously the other party doesn't vote for that because then it hinders them. They do it all the time. But then they only jump on the fact of, well, you didn't vote for this one thing that was also attached to this other thing.
When it came to the Lac-Mégantic rail bypass, how did they vote against? Against! When it came to the new Montreal Holocaust Museum on the first night of Hanukkah, how
Look at look at this drama performance. Come on, man. Why don't you go back to high school? Oh yeah, that's right. You stopped working around kids for some reason. Yeah, this is a nice big drama performance. I'm sure they sat in their little room. They're like, okay, when I start getting all heated up, then I start pointing a lot. Do it with me, and we'll get it all excited. Yeah, so we can get the Canadians to vote for us again. We have lots more money to steal.
Mr. Speaker, there is clearly nothing this Conservative leader won't compromise.
The look. Come on, man. Go to Hollywood, dude. Why don't you call up Will Ferrell and get a movie going, man? What a joke. Oh, here it is. Greg Fergus is silencing the Conservatives anytime they rally up. He mutes it, but he never mutes the Liberals. You notice that? This man is corrupt. He shouldn't have his job. Fire this guy.
The honourable member for Belleuil-Chambly.
So a little bit later here in the discussion, they talked a little bit about Quebec and the Bloc dental program. Now we're moving on back to the Liberal corruption. $150 million was stolen.
From Leeds, Grenville, Thousand Islands, and Rideau Lakes.
There's been explosive testimony by a whistleblower on this Prime Minister's billion-dollar green slush fund that's seen $150 million misappropriated and gone to Liberal insiders. And senior NDP Liberal government officials have said there is no plan to get Canadians back. They're missing millions. After 8 years of this Prime Minister, it's clear that he's not worth that cost, and probably why he wouldn't even stick around. Will the Prime Minister shut down the slush fund and get Canadians back their money?
Just think about that for a second. $150 million. That is a lot of money. Just think about if that was put into a community, or if that was spread out into multiple smaller communities. Heck, if you just took that and just dedicate that to cleaning up First Nations water, you would be able to solve that problem across Canada. 150 million? Like, it's crazy, man. This is just two people. There's just a couple Liberals that have done this. Two people destroying the lives of thousands. This should be punishable by life in prison. These people should be deported to North Korea. Like, this is heinous.
Now what you're saying, Mr. Speaker, is that the Conservative are willing to attack anyone and any institution that would fight for climate change, Mr. Speaker.
I'm sorry, the question was about $150 million of Liberals stole, and this guy's like, climate change? He's obviously incredibly corrupt.
Even institutions that have been voted by the Parliament in 2001, Mr. Speaker.
This guy's defense is that the institution was voted in, thus they're honest. This guy is a joke, man.
Now what the Conservatives are doing, they're calling the integrity into question of one of the top accounting firms in this country, Mr. Speaker.
Yes, we're calling in the integrity because they stole money, loser.
And we're still governance in that institution.
What does this have to do with climate change, man? This drama class, like...
The honourable member from Leeds, Grenville.
See, look at his facial expressions too. I spent a good 2 years of my life really breaking down and learning facial expressions. There's a long story to this. I used to be a lead artist at Electronic Arts and Microsoft. These are obviously among the two largest video game companies in the world. The reason for studying the facial features is when, say, for example, when you smile, your eyelids actually go down a little bit. And if you don't do that, it becomes creepy clown. See? Now, when you spend a lot of time studying facial expressions and human behavior and stuff, I just can't unsee this. And like, if you look at this guy when he sits down, his drama performance immediately turns off. The second he's done the like Trudeau crap, just look at it. We'll just watch it again. The second his little drama performance is done, look at the change in his face. Obviously, anyone can see it. Once they point it out and you watch it, you can see it. It's obviously just a big act.
Speaker,
his brow, his eyes, his mouth.
They're calling, we will fight for Canadians, we will fight for climate change.
Right there, it's gone. There's no emotion on the guy's face. It's gone. And watch, there's a little smirk too. Look at this little smirk at the end there. He's like, oh, I did a good job. Trudeau taught me how to do that, and thanks to his little drama class. It's like...
On this side of the House, what we're doing is fighting Liberal corruption. We're going to keep doing that, even though this minister and his chief of staff, though they say it didn't happen, were briefed on what was going on at SCTC, but it was done orally so that they wouldn't be subject to ATIP rules. It's $150 missing million given outside the funding agreement, and we have 2 Liberal-appointed board members who are under investigation by the Ethics Commissioner. We have an Auditor General investigation, and we have whistleblowers blowing the lid off this thing that shows that this minister and that Prime Minister don't have the courage to fight for Canadian tax dollars. Where are the missing millions? Who got rich?
Yeah, man.
The Honourable Minister
Who got rich is the question. Who got rich?
Mr. Speaker, on this side of the House, we will fight for Canadians every day, Mr. Speaker. Let's be very clear.
Name one thing you've done for Canadians. Just one thing. And we're not talking drama class here. One thing.
Anyone, any institution, even those they voted for in 2001, Mr. Speaker.
His whole defense here is they're fighting against the institution that's credible. That's this guy's defense. He's just kind of going overboard with the Trudeau drama class.
Speaker, to create in this House an institution that...
And let's just take a side note here. Look at these 2 losers. I hate these guys. They're obviously very... they're snakes, just like all of them on the front bench are all snakes. This is Sean Fraser, the housing minister, absolute loser. Obviously, your track record, buddy, is terrible. You're destroying Canadian lives. Good job, buddy. This guy here, Jonathan Wilkinson, also a loser. He's the minister of minerals and whatever else. This is the guy that claims that people get more back from the carbon tax, which I already proven in another video. You pay about $7,000 more per year in all of everything that cascades down from this climate tax. So his, like, even if you're getting $300 back a year, no one cares. And look at them. They're all on their phones. They don't care. There's no regard for the House. They're just sitting there like, oh yeah, I'm getting paid $300K a year. Let's play on my phone here.
Would fight for climate change, Mr. Speaker. We suspended the funding of the organization. We call for an investigation. The leadership has resigned. We'll get to the bottom of this, Mr. Speaker.
Now he's pretending he cares. They're not going to get to the bottom of nothing. I bet he's getting some of that money.
The minister won't tell us which Liberals got rich, and government officials last night admitted they were in every single board meeting where this happened in the Liberal Green Slush Fund. And according to the whistleblower, the former chair and directors took over $150 million of taxpayer money to their own companies. They were present, government officials were present during these meetings and allowed it to happen. So I'll ask the minister, why didn't he fire these corrupt Liberal directors?
They shouldn't be fired. At this point, it needs to be life in prison. When you cause suffering and you steal people breaking their backs every day going to work, people are not working 5 days a week anymore. They're working 6 days. They're working 7 days. They're working double hours every day just to pay their bills, and to steal all that, that's life in prison as far as I'm concerned.
The Honourable Minister.
It's great to see my honourable colleague from Atlantic Canada stand up. I wish he stood up last week, and I wish he and his 7 other colleagues stood up last week.
This lady is a big
On
puff
this side
piece.
of the House, we know the great work that the Atlantic Canada Opportunity...
This lady, she just puff, 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 hot air comes out. Like, what is she? She just basically ignoring the question and just puffing whatever she wants. This is, like, you're fired. If I was in charge, you're fired.
His agency does for communities, for not-for-profits, for businesses. If he truly believed in the great work of ACOA, he would have done what his colleague from Caribou Prince George did, who abstained on his belief.
Puff, puff, puff. This lady just goes on and doesn't even answer the question, doesn't even remotely try to answer the question.
What's he going to say to the people of,
What's he going to say to the, what's the name? I don't remember because I'm not good at my job.
funds in his riding? I'm going to tell them we have your back.
If you're in the trench doing this stuff every day, you don't need to look at the names of what these places are or who the people are. Like, let's be honest. If you're a welder and if someone asks you what's the name of your welding gun or whatever, you're not going to be like, where's my piece of paper? What's it called? Johnson Welder 10,000. Like, you're not going to... or whatever it is. If you're a dental hygienist, you're not going to need some piece of paper like, what's the name of the number 7 tool for cleaning teeth? Like, give me a break. These people are terrible.
St. Margaret's.
They're terrible at their
It's just
jobs.
not good enough that they won't deal do with Liberal corruption at the Green Liberal Slush Fund. In fact, the minister took 35 months under his watch to suspend the Green Slush Fund when his own officials were in the meeting. And the whistleblower testified last night that the chair of the Green Slush Fund tried to get $2.2 million from the fund into her own vanity project, the Annette Basharian Center, a direct conflict of interest.
Yeah, so this lady had her own fund, her own company or whatever, and she funneled in 2.2 million. That's what we were talking about earlier. Just try to slip that in there and then hope nobody sees that, and then later you can pay that all out to yourself. Nice, good, wholesome corruption, stealing money straight from people breaking their backs every day.
Why did the minister not fire this Liberal corrupt director the minute that happened?
Just last week, Canadians have seen they have voted against CSIS, Mr. Speaker. They have voted against funding for affordable child.
This guy is just a big puff piece with this drama class. Mr. Speaker, Trudeau taught me to be really loud and just open my mouth a bit and point.
Care in this country, Mr. Speaker, will stand for growth, and we will continue to fight for Canadians at every step of the way, Mr. Speaker.
Trudeau taught me be loud.
$150 million in subsidies to Liberal friends from the $1 billion Liberal Green Slush Fund for months, despite the fact that its bureaucrats, its eyes and ears, went to meetings during which Liberal friends filled their pockets with cash. Instead of continuing to camouflage, can the Minister let us know when we will get reimbursed for all this? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker.
Oh, God, this lady, too, she's a big puff piece. She's taken the same acting class from Trudeau. Just a whole lot of pointing and a whole lot of big gestures. Full on Karen mode.
The Conservatives' favourite thing to do is to chop, chop, chop. 120 times the Conservatives have gone against Canadian values recently. Shame on them.
Look at that. She had her big puff piece, just like I pointed out with that other guy. And look at this. See the smile on her face? That's the most disingenuous thing I've ever seen. Big, angry puff piece sits down with a big smile on her face. She looked at her, and they're probably saying, yeah, did you like that? Yeah, just like Trudeau taught us, really, really ham it up like a drama class. This is... Fire this lady, too.
This costly NDP Liberal government learnt in May that Liberal friends that they had appointed to the Green Slush Fund had filled their pockets for their own interests. And what did the minister do? Absolutely nothing. Even worse, the minister, and I quote, lied. According to a whistleblower before committee, he did nothing, and more money was dispersed right into the pocket of Liberal friends after 8 years. This Prime Minister is simply not worth it. When will the Canadians finally get their money back? Thank you, Mr. Speaker. The Minister has answered this question very well already. What we don't know, Mr. Speaker, is why opposition MPs a few days ago voted against.
Yeah, so enough of the fluff. They always do this. Oh, someone else has already answered this question. Let me just bring up this thing. That's what the Liberals love to do. They never like to actually answer questions. I gotta wonder, every time I look at this bench, there's got to be at least a couple of them, 3 or 4 or 5 of them, who don't agree with any of this stuff that these guys are doing. I'm guessing it's the ones in the back row. Maybe it's this guy. He's got his face down. You knows, maybe it's some of them like her, or maybe this guy. I don't know a lot of these people. I don't know a lot of them never speak, so it's hard to know, but some of them have to be sitting there thinking, Trudeau is an absolute disaster. He's ruining our country. They got to be thinking the same thing. I at least have some hope that not all these people are absolute disasters for this country, but same token, they don't have the power to do anything. This Green Slush Fund thing is the biggest mess ever. Now, if you haven't seen the leaked audio file, there's a couple of Liberals just joking like, oh, this is like, free money, blah, 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 like just having a laugh over the $1 billion eco green slush fund that Trudeau set up. And so that's how this all started. So money was taken from there for their own personal companies and stuff. Often the corruption, like people pay their spouse, their kids, like they just, in funny ways like that, it reduces taxes, that allows them to hide it. And then obviously it just goes into one account. Then they go and put that off into some offshore account or whatever, and then put that into another account, into another shell company. They do all this slimy stuff to hide money, and we need a police force that is above the government. We also need transparency on all of government spending. It should be on a website. I should be able to go on government, CanadianGovernment.com, whatever, Canada.com, and look at how much did Justin Trudeau spend for dinner yesterday. Did he spend $1,700 on the taxpayer? How much did he spend? How much did Karina Gould spend on her hair that she charged to the government, or her food, or her whatever? Like, I should be able to see what all of these people spent, including the NDP and the Conservatives. How much did Pierre Poilievre spend? Like, it should be open and it should be balanced. You should see in and out. And anytime there's a missing number there, I used to do accounting for my ex-wife's notary company. You used to balance $10 to $12 million going in and out of that account every month. If there was a dollar missing, I would find it. So that's where my knowledge just comes in. Where's the money missing? There's obviously these huge discrepancies. If there was public transparency on this, then we wouldn't be having these problems. Or at least we can look and say, Trudeau's spending too much on food. I think it's $10,000 a month he's allowed to spend on just food. We're going to reduce that to $1,000 a month, or whatever it may be. But without transparency, these guys are stealing our money and running us into the ground. We have the force here. We have the numbers. The problem is Canadians have been very nice, but Canadians aren't being so nice anymore. So I would recommend the Liberals, they need to be careful, because they've pissed off a good portion of this country. Like 35 million plus people hate their guts now. That is not a good place to be in. So hope you guys stay warm, stay fed. I'll see you in the next one.